basic political reality that in moments like this, you need leadership so much. And the president did go down to Texas, and he promised disaster response unlike any other we've ever seen. The president's trip did not include stops to the hardest hit areas, but that was for a reason. They didn't want to tax the first responders. They didn't want to get in the way of the rescue efforts. The president is getting criticism not for that, but for what he said, what he didn't say, and how. CNN's Joe Johns is live at the White House with more. There's always going to be some criticism, but it's been more intense than expected this time.
I think that's right, Chris. The natural disaster on the Gulf Coast giving the president a prime opportunity to get on the ground and engage with the people who are suffering and struggling on the Gulf Coast. Now, the president's visit to Texas was certainly well received by the people there, especially the state and local officials who realize that help from Washington is going to be required in the next days, months, weeks, and even years ahead. But the president was hit by his critics for what could be perceived as a lack of expression of empathy for the victims. The president choosing instead to focus on the resilience of Texas and offering words of encouragement.
I want to thank you for coming out.
This was of epic proportion. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. Governor, again, thank you very much. And we won't say congratulations. We don't want to do that. We don't want to congratulate. We'll congratulate each other when it's all finished.
Today, the president is expected to go back on the road again, this time to Springfield, Missouri, to offer the opening salvo, if you will, on his tax reform plan. No indication that the White House is planning on changing that trip due to the situation on the Gulf Coast. The president is expected to return to the disaster area over the weekend, Chris.
Right, and we're hearing from our reporters that the vice president may be there before that, so we'll watch. This is certainly a show of force by the administration in this situation. Joe, thank you very much. Let's bring in our panel. We have CNN political analyst Abby Phillip and CNN political commentator Errol Louis. All right, so Errol, look, there's criticism in all things. Let's get to the merits of what was expected and what fell short in your estimation.
Well, what was expected was that he would show up, right? Which he did. It was expected that he'd be, I think in some quarters, that he'd be some kind of a comforter and show a side of this president that we've really not seen in public life. That was probably a little bit unrealistic. This is somebody who likes to show that he can take charge, that he can come in and organize things, that he can come in and make things better. He's not somebody who's going to hold a weeping mother in his arms or anything like that, and he didn't go anywhere near that. He didn't roll up his sleeves and get in the mud even for the sake of showmanship. It's not his style. It's not what he wanted to do. This ended up being in some ways like kind of an ink blot test. You know, there's no way any president is going to ever get it exactly right. If you stay away, you look like you're aloof. If you go into it, it looks like a photo op and it's staged and you're kind of wasting everybody's time. So he walked the path that he walked. In my estimation, I think he got it about as good as could be expected. The real questions, of course, are going to now follow about the recovery, the rebuilding. And when he said to the governor, we'll congratulate ourselves when it's all over, it's not going to get done this year. It's not going to get done during this presidency. They have a very, very long road ahead of them down there.
Well, there's no question. I mean, Abby, look at what we saw in Louisiana. You had 450,000 plus before, assuming that they had their count right, and that's a whole other story about the communities that may have not been accounted for properly. They have about 400,000 now, so recovery becomes a defined term. But what do you see as the measure of the man in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think Errol is right to some extent that they knew that there would be risks in doing this. When you go down early, you kind of have to go outside of the immediate disaster area. You don't get close enough to victims that you can actually have those moments. I think Trump probably did miss an opportunity to say something, you know, a message from his mouth to the American people, to the people who are still in the line of fire here about you know, about the fact that the rest of the country is with them, about what they've been suffering, about their loss and their experiences. That being said, to the White House's credit, they're aware of the reality that the situation did not lend itself to that. That's why they floated the idea and are likely to go back over the weekend when things have maybe settled a little bit or just enough that he can actually be face to face with people who are at risk here. So I think they're aware. I think you know, this is a first for President Trump. He's going to have to learn how to do this. We won't know how he fares until he's faced with that situation, and they probably learned from the feedback and maybe some of the backlash from the experience that he actually needs to do more. It's not going to be enough to say, hey, everything's going really well and congratulate the officials on the ground. No one really cares about that. What they care about is the idea that everybody understands what they've gone through and what they've lost.
There happens to be one piece of sound in particular that wound up piquing the interest of critics. Do we have it in terms of what he had said in his moment? Yes.
Thank you, everybody. What a crowd, what a turnout. I will tell you, this is historic. It's epic what happened. But you know what? It happened in Texas, and Texas can handle anything. Thank you all, folks. Thank you.
Look, the truth is, Errol, this is who he is. If he's going to go somewhere, he's going to talk about the crowd side. He's going to talk about the projection of his own popularity. You know, that's who he was when he got elected. That's who he is now. It's not going to change. You like it, you don't like it, period. You're going to have to measure the actions. Will he get Congress to give the money, or we're going to see what we saw with Sandy? And the political cover-up of what happened with Sandy can't be allowed, because if we don't call out what happened, then some lawmakers somewhere are going to try to repeat it. So that's going to be the test. Now, today, he's going to Missouri. He's going to try to sell his tax plan. Is that the right move in this moment?
It probably is, to tell you the truth, because the reality is he's going to have to make a transition to going back to running the government. You know, as gripping as this is, as terrible as this is, we've got a lot of different things that are going on, right? There's missiles flying over Japan. There's a political agenda that doesn't come to a halt. The nation and the life of the nation goes forward. So, yes, it is the right thing. However, this is a case, I think, where what he says and how he says it will really, really matter. Because whatever else he says, he needs to express sympathy for people who are going through the trauma of a lifetime in Texas right next door. He's also, though, I think, got to sort of be careful not to be too political about it. And this is the political edge of selling the tax plan. This is trying to sort of stir people up and make them feel like something is necessary. This is a time to sort of put pressure. That's why he's going to Missouri, to put pressure on their Democratic senator there. If it's too political, it'll start to feel a little bit jarring.
More proof of why it is the most difficult job in the world. Errol, Abby, thank you very much. Let's get back to Allison down in Houston, and that's the main test. Will people stay interested, stay involved? You're in the right place at the right time.
Because, Chris, as you know, it's raining again in parts of Houston. Southeastern Texas is being hammered by rain as Harvey makes landfall now a second time. So we have a live report from the ground next. Also, to learn more about how you can help those affected by Harvey, go to CNN.com/impact. They need your help.